Shut up and sit down.
Welcome once again to the Shite podcast show. I'm your host Mark Kearns on episode 106. Back after a week of absence, and we're back with a new comic book show. I know 105 episode was a comic book show as well, but with the Marvel and Sony split in this Spider-Man franchise, how could I not do a show on about that? We also got some interesting news on Mortal Kombat 11, a few new characters added to that game. We got Matrix. They're coming back with a 4th edition to the Matrix saga, which is very exciting for me. Anyone who grew up watching Matrix really would have been a pretty big fan. As well as that, James Bond, the new James Bond will have a title. We'll be talking a bit about that and the movie as well in the show. But right now, we have to get straight on to the really interesting point of this, is the Marvel and Sony split. So if you don't know what the Sony and Marvel deal is, if this is kind of new to you, it's basically back in the 90s, Marvel was going through a big, huge cash shortage. So what they tried to do was sell off a few of their biggest characters to various different movie outlets. Fox and Sony were two of the biggest buyers of the properties, and it didn't really work for them. They didn't get a whole lot of money from likes of Sony and Fox making these movies. They didn't got a tiny percentage. It wasn't really until they start making movies themselves did they come in the big kind of movie juggernaut that they are now. But one of the biggest problems was that when they started making movies, they suddenly didn't have like the Spider-Man, like the X-Men, like the Fantastic Four to use because they had sold off these rights to these characters. This is unlike DC, who kept their rights to their characters and just made movies with them. We weren't going through as much financial difficulty as Marvel at the time. So back in 2015, Disney, who owns Marvel, came to a deal with Sony that they could use Spider-Man in their MCU universe, and they came up to a deal where that like Marvel would only take 5% of the Spider-Man income, and so the rest of 95% will go to Sony. But Marvel Studios could pretty much make their Spider-Man movie which they wanted, which you could add into the MCU. And now that deal is now off the table. Now, the details of it isn't exactly sure, and kind of all the information I seem to get was from the kind of definitely the Sony side of the deal. But rumors are going around that Disney saw 50% profits from the Spider-Man movies. Now, the previous movie made, I think, $1.1 billion in the box office. $1.1 billion in the box office. That's Spider-Man Far From Home. And definitely was the movie, like this new Tom Holland Spider-Man will definitely save the Spider-Man franchise. After Spider-Man 3, I think it was doing really well, and after Spider-Man 3 it got such bad reviews that people lost kind of a bit of faith for a while in Spider-Man movies. They came back with Amazing Spider-Man, which was very unsuccessful as well. So before this Sony Marvel deal, the character Spider-Man was in a lot bad. It was in a bad place right now. Like, the movies weren't getting critically acclaimed. They're getting shunned by a lot of fans, and they weren't doing as well as the MCU characters were doing for Marvel. So what happened once Marvel came in? They were able to get their hands on the Spider-Man. They were able to do a proper Spider-Man well. Finally, fans were getting a good Spider-Man. And now, because of this deal, Sony are gonna go back with probably with Tom Holland and make their crappy version of a Spider-Man movie. So this is really bad for fans in that sense. We don't know whether or not Sony did say that they do hope in the future to work with Marvel or Disney again and continue their partnership, but they say for now the deals of this arrangement are unstable. You can kind of get from the Sony's point of view. Like, they're going from a deal where they're getting 95% of the profits to 50%. I don't know if this is like a bargaining thing where Disney hit them really high and just said, "Oh, we want 50% or deals off." And obviously Sony's going, "No, cancel the deal then. We'll make our own movie and be able to get more profits from this by ourselves, even if it isn't as good." So I reckon maybe Disney, hopefully Disney come back and maybe say like 20%, 25%, and then they settle on a deal like 15%. Maybe they want like 15%, so they hit them high with 50%, or they want 25%. So they hit them really high and just try to highball them. Hopefully that is the case and we get the partnership, because it's better for everyone. There's too much money on the table right now for both Sony and Marvel to lose out on. Like 5% of $5 billion is still a lot of money. So like, it's definitely more lucrative, because like in the MCU right now, Spider-Man is arguably the biggest star. And really, are you going to cut your nose to spite your face over 5%? You're getting nothing anyway now because of this. So I definitely do think they will come to a deal. There is just too much money on the table for both parties. So it is a huge shame in this. And there's kind of circulating rumours. Like, a lot of fans wanted a Deadpool Spider-Man crossover. I don't think that ever would have happened. And I think they're leaving Venom as a standalone. Guaranteed, if this Sony Marvel split goes, they're definitely going to work Spider-Man in. But the problem about it is, the even worse thing is, this kind of separation of these two parties will lead to a lot of messy arguments over like fiscal responsibilities and financial payments. So we might not even see another Spider-Man for years after. So until this deal is settled, Sony mightn't be able legally to make another Spider-Man movie until the agreement between Disney and Sony is made up. So like, we don't know when. We could be years before we get another Spider-Man movie as well, if this deal goes, if it's a messy split and it does go ahead. So the ramifications of this is probably only starting now, and we're probably looking at a good few years of argument between Sony and Disney over the properties. But like, Disney already owns like a huge percentage of the entertainment sphere. Like, surely the 5% on Spider-Man would be enough. Like, you don't want to be too greedy. So definitely, I think Disney are going to come off looking the worse from this. At the start, when the story first broke, I know a lot of people were criticizing Sony. I think a few people were like, just give Disney what they want, but like, obviously it wouldn't be tenable to do a Spider-Man. There's no point paying the fees for the rights to Spider-Man and getting just little profits from it. Anyway, moving on to the Mortal Kombat 11 game. And it was kind of been rumored for a while that we're going to get characters like Spawn and Terminator. And those rumours have shown off to be exactly true. We are going to get the Terminator, Spawn, Sindel, and the Joker coming into the the Mortal Kombat 11 game. Terminator is set to drop on October the 8th, and this is followed by previous teased Sindel, who's going to be coming on November 26th. The Joker and Spawn will arrive on January and March respectively. So that's really exciting. And the graphics for this game, for Mortal Kombat 11, looks incredibly well. There's a kind of video going around YouTube of the characters, and yeah, it looks really, really slick. The Terminator graphics look amazing, and for years fans have been wanting Terminator to come into the Mortal Kombat franchise, and we're going to get Spawn, which I think they're in rumors of making a new movie about Spawn. So this is I think this is really smart by the creators of Spawn to throw him into a game, get him back into so at least the gamers who mightn't have seen the original, I'd say very few people have seen the original Spawn movie at this stage, will be recognise the character. People who mightn't be exactly comic book fans, maybe just gaming fans, will know who Spawn is. They'll recognise him from the game and might go see the movie. So this is very smart if they are thinking about making a Spawn movie. And as well as that, we get to Joker, which is always a fun character. Kind of a throwback to the Mortal Kombat versus DC universe. So that'll be interesting. So gaming fans, that pretty big news for them. But I think the biggest news, other than the Marvel Sony split, has to be The Matrix is returning. This franchise, I think it started in 1999. Keanu Reeves, who's now 54, will reprise his role as Neo in the franchise for a fourth installment. Carrie-Anne Moss, who's 51, will return as Trinity, and it'll be co-written by the same people. Sisters Lana Wachowski and the original film with her sister Lily Wachowski. And the film it's 20 years old. The franchise is 20 years old, and obviously there's 3 classic movies. That this is a fourth one, Reloaded and Revolutions will be the other Matrix movies, and it went on to spawn about it went on to make $1.6 billion or 1.3 billion pounds worldwide when it was released. Giant franchise, kind of changed the film industry for a time. Definitely there was the slow down effect, slow motion, and dodging bullets was taking the piss out in a lot of movies, and even the slow motion of that came really popular. This is all from the Matrix film, so definitely huge kind of fan base around Matrix. And it's kind of interesting what they're going to do with the Matrix movies, because Keanu Reeves, he's just come off that that movie franchise. I only seen the third one there recently. But that's kind of very similar, action based. And he does kind of like that kind of action-based movies where there's a lot of combat shooting scenes in the movies. But I am kind of surprised that he would come back for a fourth installment of a franchise if he wouldn't want to move on to kind of John Wick. Is what the movie I was thinking about. He wouldn't want to move on to a new project or try something new. But then again, John Wick has 3 movies, so it's not strange for him to come back for another sequel or sequels for movies. And Keanu Reeves is a great actor as well, so like that's to be look forward to as well. I really want to. I think I have to watch Matrix Revolutions again. It's been such a long time since I've actually sat down and watched it. I don't know. I know kind of how it ended, but I'd have to refresh myself to see what the plot is going to be. But definitely the kind of timeline or the synopsis of the movie, where it's basically a simulation world, it's definitely more relevant when we're in an age of Netflix, Black Mirrors. It definitely has more relevancy when there's all this, as well as social media and the idea of like simulation. This world could be a simulation, or even in the future creating a simulation world is more relevant in today's society. So that I think the Matrix right now could be more relevant than it was back in 1999 when it was released. So that, I think for the Matrix fans, this is going to be probably a huge release for. I think it could probably make 1.6 billion alone now for the franchise when it's released, if it's done right. Like, it has a huge fan base. James Bond, talking about huge fan bases, it's back with its 25th installment, which is incredible that a movie has managed to be so successful and make 25 installments of the movie. A lot of people say that this franchise had its day, it's outdated, and I'm personally a fan of James Bond movies. I've keep hitting off that. I've been watching since a kid. Yeah, I think everybody's growing up watching all the James Bond movies. It's just part of, I think, Western culture is a James Bond movie. And considering that the first one is done in 1962, I think anybody's listening to this now has been around when a James Bond was around. There haven't been in a non-James Bond world. And with Sean Connery first reprising the role of the actor back in 1962 in a film called Dr. No, and now with Daniel Craig reprising the role in his latest 25th installment called No Time to Die. The James Bond kind of franchise is, when you take in for kind of inflation, it is the largest movie industry ever. It's worth 7 billion, which when you adjust for inflation is in today's money is $16.4 billion. So it'd make it the largest movie franchise, larger than the MCU. But when you don't adjust for inflation and keep it at that, it's still basically the third largest movie franchise of all time. It's just behind Harry Potter, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe being the largest movie franchise of all time. So like that's incredible stats for James Bond. It's just a testament that it has stood the test of time so well. Like I guess you kind of have to adjust for somewhat inflation when you consider the first movie came out in 1962. You're never going to get to $1 billion in a movie in 1962. So yeah, when you adjust for that, $16.4 billion that wouldn't make in today's money, I guess, with 24 movies. But I'm pretty sure Marvel's probably creeping up on the 20th movie when you consider all the Iron Man and other movies that they've made as well. So that's quite impressive as well. But yeah, James Bond. I think it's going to be released. I might have forgot to put in the show notes, but it's going to be released on April 2020. So we have a bit to wait for that movie to come out to hit the cinema screens. And I think it's going to be Daniel Craig's last movie as James Bond. And we don't really know what we're going to do with characters. There's no, in terms of plot for this movie, there hasn't been really anything released. There's kind of rumours going around that they could kill off James Bond in this movie. He could die, and kind of leave openings for maybe a reimagining of the character itself. Whether it be whatever they try to do it, to try to might evolve the franchise. But we don't know. And yeah, hopefully they don't kill off James Bond. But I do think it would be a major turning zone for the movie. Would be a way of kind of reinterpreting, maybe bringing it in a different direction, possibly bringing in a female 007 agent, possibly changing the character as for all, like in whatever way you want. They could do definitely leave them more options, whether they just keep him alive and bring in a different actor as James Bond and just pretend nothing has changed, as they've done for the last 1962 would have been last 50 years. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Quite a short podcast for today's show, but short and sweet. That's the way we like it. I'll be back next Thursday with another show. Talk to you then.